Ethan watched the girl eat as if every bite was precious, as if she feared the food might disappear before she could swallow. Her hands trembled, not just from hunger but from something deeper: fear, exhaustion, trauma, maybe all three. Ethan leaned against the counter, his mind racing. He owned one of the most secure estates in Scottsdale. High walls, motion sensors, biometric locks. No one could simply wander in, especially not a child. Yet here she was, sitting in his kitchen like a ghost that had slipped through his walls. Something wasn't adding up, and the mystery gnawed at him. The morning sun spilled through the tall glass windows, bathing the polished marble floors in golden light. Ethan always loved this hour, a symbol of order and control before the chaos of business meetings and investors. But today, that sense of control was shattered. He couldn't ignore the question swirling in his head. Who was Ayanna? Where did she come from? Why was she hiding in his vault of all places? He studied her closely, the faint lines on her forehead, the ancient symbols stitched onto her tattered clothing. None of it matched anything he recognized. Ayanna finally paused, lifting her gaze to Ethan. Her eyes were unlike any he had ever seen. Dark, glassy, intense, as though carrying stories far older than her small body could possibly hold. There was no fear in them now, only curiosity. She seemed to be silently measuring him. Ethan felt a strange chill race down his spine. He was used to reading investors, analysts, competitors, but reading a child's expression should have been simple. With Ayanna, it was like trying to decipher a language carved into stone centuries ago, one he had no key for. "Are you hurt?" Ethan asked softly. Ayanna shook her head, then looked away. Her silence wasn't ordinary. It felt selective, intentional, like she carried secrets she refused to share. Ethan moved to sit across from her, keeping his voice calm. "I need to know how you got in. This house is protected. You can't just appear inside a locked vault." Ayanna blinked once, twice, then lowered her gaze. It was as though the question didn't confuse her, it annoyed her. She wasn't lost. She wasn't scared. She was hiding. Ethan exhaled slowly and stood up. He needed answers, and not the kind an underfed 7-year-old could, or would, give. He tapped on his smartwatch, opening the mansion's security system. The timeline displayed every camera feed, every door log, every movement detected in the past 24 hours. He scrolled. Nothing unusual. No breach, no alarms, no entries logged. Ethan frowned. He checked again. Still nothing. It was impossible. No human could bypass that system without leaving a trace. And yet, Ayanna was proof someone had done exactly that. Or worse, something he didn't understand. The silence in the mansion suddenly felt heavy, like the walls themselves were listening. Ethan looked back at the child. She had finished eating and now sat perfectly still, hands folded, eyes focused on him like she had been waiting. Her posture had changed. She no longer looked fragile or helpless. She seemed prepared. Ethan shivered. His rational mind wanted to dismiss it as imagination, but his instincts screamed otherwise. Something was off about her presence. She didn't behave like a child rescued by chance. She behaved like someone who had arrived with purpose. His phone buzzed with alerts, meetings he was now late for. Normally, nothing disrupted Ethan Walker's schedule. But today, he couldn't leave. Not without understanding who was under his roof. He took another step toward her. "Ayanna, I want to help you," he said. For a moment, she seemed to consider his words, as if weighing them against something only she could see. Then she whispered, barely audible, "They're coming." Ethan froze. The words were simple, but her tone was not. It wasn't a warning. It was a fact, a certainty. "Who's coming?" Ethan demanded, his voice sharper than before. Ayanna looked toward the nearest window, her expression tightening. She wasn't scared of the threat. She was scared of Ethan not understanding it in time. Ethan followed her gaze, seeing nothing but the quiet suburban landscape outside. Golf course lawns, morning joggers, expensive cars. Everything looked normal, yet his chest felt tight. Something unseen was approaching, something beyond wealth, logic, or technology. He had always believed every problem had a solution. But this felt like stepping into a world where his rules didn't apply. Ethan rubbed his temples, trying to think. Maybe she meant social workers, a family, anyone searching for a missing child. But no missing person report had crossed his security briefings. He would have known. He always knew. Suddenly, Ayanna looked at him again, eyes shining with urgency. "They'll take me," she whispered, almost pleading. For the first time, Ethan saw something real, fear. It cracked through her mysterious composure like lightning. In that moment, Ethan made a decision he didn't fully understand. "No one is taking you from here," he said. The promise left his lips before logic could intervene. Ayanna blinked, surprised, not by his words, but by his conviction. As if she had been waiting to hear exactly that. Ethan didn't know why he said it. He didn't know who they were. But the moment the words left his mouth, the air in the room changed. It felt heavier, charged, as if an ancient pact had been sealed. Ethan sensed it, though he had no explanation. He didn't know that this single, unplanned sentence would alter the course of his life, tie him to a destiny rooted centuries before he was born, and place him in the center of a conflict far beyond human understanding. Ethan's throat tightened as Ayanna's small fingers dug into his sleeve. Her reaction wasn't instinctual, it was familiar, as though she recognized the women and knew exactly what their arrival meant. Ethan looked from her to the strangers on his doorstep, unsure whether to step back or block their view. The elderly woman's gaze didn't waver, it cut through him with the precision of a blade. She didn't look angry, she looked certain. Certain that Ayanna was theirs. Ethan swallowed, trying to keep his voice steady. "Who are you?" he asked. The woman's lips curled into a thin, unreadable line, but she didn't respond. The silence stretched, thick as fog. Ethan felt the weight of the moment pressing against him, urging him to decide whether to let them in or slam the door. Ayanna's grip tightened. Ethan could feel her trembling, and suddenly the protectiveness he felt wasn't logical, it was primal. The warrior-like woman stepped forward, her eyes scanning the hallway behind Ethan, as if expecting hidden traps or witnesses. Ethan instinctively shifted, obstructing her view. He wasn't used to being challenged in his own home. His mansion was his fortress. Yet these women stood there as if they had every right to demand entry. The younger woman finally spoke, her tone sharp and unwavering. "The child was never meant to be here." The words hit Ethan like a hammer. Never meant to be here. He looked down at Ayanna, her dark hair falling over her frightened eyes. Every instinct told him that there was more to her than hunger and silence. Something ancient pulsed beneath the surface of her existence, something even the mansion's technology couldn't detect. Ethan squared his shoulders. "She's under my protection," he said. The statement came out stronger than he intended, but the moment it did, he knew he meant it. A flicker of surprise passed between the three women, almost imperceptible. The elder moved closer, but her footsteps made no sound despite the stone path beneath her. Her voice, though soft, felt like it echoed from somewhere deeper than the human world. "Protection," she repeated, tasting the word. "Do you understand what she carries? Do you understand what follows her?" Ethan opened his mouth, but no answer came. Ayanna pressed her forehead against his arm, her breathing unsteady. The elder's gaze softened, not with kindness but with something mournful, like a person observing a man who didn't know he was already condemned. Ayanna stepped forward slightly, her voice shaking. "I didn't want them to find me." It was the most she had spoken since Ethan met her. The warrior woman's jaw clenched. "You cannot outrun your blood," she snapped. Ethan frowned. Blood, destiny. The words meant nothing to him, yet everything about Ayanna's behavior suddenly made sense. Her silence, her fear, her strange awareness. She hadn't stumbled into his vault by accident. She was hiding, from these women, or from something they represented. Ethan placed a hand on Ayanna's shoulder. "She's staying here," he repeated. This time, it wasn't a statement, it was a challenge. The elder sighed, her expression shifting from steel to sorrow. "You think this is a choice," she murmured. "But you have already chosen." Ethan didn't understand what she meant, but the hair on his arms rose. The third woman, the one holding the ceremonial pouch, stepped forward and opened it slightly. Ethan caught a glimpse of strange objects, stones, feathers, something glowing faintly. The woman whispered something in a language Ethan didn't know, yet somehow felt. Ayanna shuddered. The energy in the air changed. Heavy, electric, ancient. Ethan had seen technology mimic wonder before, but nothing like this. This was real. Before Ethan could react, The elder woman lifted her hand, not to strike, but to gesture. The air rippled around her palm, like heat waves rising from desert sand. She is the last of her line, the elder said, her voice tightening. Our blood has been hunted for centuries. If she remains here, she will bring danger to you that no wall, no lock, no machine can prevent. Ethan's jaw clenched. He wasn't a man who backed away from risk, not in business, not in life. But this wasn't risk, this was prophecy, and prophecy didn't care about wealth or power. Ayanna suddenly stepped in front of Ethan, her tiny frame trembling but determined. He didn't hurt me, she whispered. He saved me. The younger warrior's eyes narrowed. He interfered, she corrected. An interference demands consequence. Ethan bristled. Consequence. For kindness. For feeding a starving child. He wanted to argue, to reason with them, but reason felt irrelevant here. These women operated on laws and history he didn't understand, rules older than the country his mansion stood on. The realization struck Ethan like a punch. He wasn't dealing with a missing child's guardians. He was dealing with something far older, far deeper. The elder stepped back, giving Ethan a look that chilled him. We will return, she said quietly. And when we do, the choice you believe you made will cost more than you know. Then, without another word, the three women turned and walked away. No car waited for them. No pathway led to the road. Yet within seconds, they were gone, as though the earth itself had swallowed them whole. Ethan stood frozen in the doorway, heart racing. Ayanna clung to him, tears gathering in her eyes, not because the danger was gone, but because it had just begun. And Ethan Walker, millionaire and master of logic, now stood in a story logic couldn't touch.